Welcome back to the Intuitive Creators Podcast, where we dive into the soul side of creativity, spirituality, and living a life that feels truly aligned. I'm your host, Mandee, and today we're talking about something that might make some people squirm, but it's one of the most transformative practices you'll ever do: shadow work. I want to frame it in a way that takes away the fear or heaviness around it, because shadow work isn't punishment. It's not about beating yourself up, and it's not about digging endlessly for what's wrong with you. It's actually one of the deepest acts of self-love. Because here's the truth. When you face your fears, you free yourself. All right, my friends, let's get right into the subject. I'm very excited to talk about this today. If you are familiar with shadow work, then this is just, adding to that knowledge, adding to discussion. But if you are not familiar, then I will give you digestible explanations of everything. And hopefully you decide for yourself that it might be beneficial for you. And shadow work is something that can be incorporated for anybody, absolutely anybody. So let's start with something simple, like a definition. The shadow is a term first brought forward by Carl Jung, and it refers to the unconscious parts of ourselves that we deny, suppress, or reject. These are usually traits, desires, or wounds that we were told weren't acceptable, so we buried them. Jung believed that the shadow isn't inherently bad. It's simply the parts of us we don't want to see. For example, maybe you were told as a child not to cry, so your sadness got pushed into the shadow. Or maybe you were told to stop showing off, so your natural confidence got buried too. He also taught that the shadow often reveals itself through projection, something we've talked about a few times on this podcast. So hopefully you will enjoy this. That means that when we judge others harshly, we're usually seeing something in them that we've disowned in ourselves. The shadow is like a mirror. It shows up in our triggers. Jung called integrating the shadow an essential part of what he described as individuation, or the process of becoming whole. In other words, we can't reach our full potential while rejecting parts of ourselves. Shadow work is the process of gently and courageously bringing those parts into the light, not to shame them, but to integrate them. Think of it this way. Imagine you have a closet in your house that you never open because you just throw everything in there you don't want to deal with. Over time, the closet gets so full you can't ignore it anymore. That's the shadow. Shadow work is opening that closet with curiosity and compassion, and then saying, okay, what's really here? And how can I love even this part of me? So if you're not familiar with Carl Jung, I believe he's a psychologist. I'm not super well-versed in titles or names of occupations, but he's a really big name in psychology. I actually have a couple books with his teachings and things and his concepts, his studies. I am very much a big shadow work person. I have been doing it for, I'd probably say about 6 years now. I actually started doing it without knowing it was shadow work, without really knowing it was part of spirituality, without it knowing it was even part of psychology, really. So I'm really excited to talk about this subject today. I feel very strongly about people working into these things. And not for nothing, it's 2025, and I understand like titles and, labels are, pretty crazy these days. But shadow work can be done no matter what your belief system is, no matter what your past is, no matter what your current beliefs over healing is. It's really just about looking at those parts of you that, aren't exactly pretty and learning to accept yourself and to work through it. Maybe it's a pattern of yours that, you self-sabotage relationships because of something you experienced when you were younger. Like, you figure out why, and then from there you can work into it, integrate that information, and then become less indoctrinated into that pattern, right? So, why shadow work is self-love? This is the heart of today's episode. I want to make that super clear. When you bring your shadow into the light, you're telling yourself, every part of me is worthy of being seen, loved, and healed. That's radical self-love. Because think about it. The opposite of self-love isn't hate. It's rejection. When you reject parts of yourself, you live in fragments. You're never whole. You're always at war with yourself. Shadow work says, I don't have to hide anymore. I can love the parts of me that are scared, angry, jealous, ashamed, because they still are me. They're just carrying unprocessed pain. And here's the secret. Those parts of you are also carrying gifts. Anger can reveal your boundaries. Jealousy can show you what you truly desire. Fear can point you to where your deepest freedom lies. Shame can show you where you're ready to be liberated. This is why shadow work isn't scary. It's liberating. So why do we resist this work? Of course, if it's so powerful, why don't we all just dive right in, right? Because the shadow is uncomfortable. It's raw. It challenges the identity we've built. Society tells us to be positive, to always love and light everything away. That creates spiritual bypassing, where we use positivity to avoid healing. And honestly, my friends, this is going to be a whole nother episode I'm going to be doing on, I'm probably going to do a series of spiritual bypassing, but I think it's a really big topic and it's a very hot topic as of right now. So stay tuned for that. Families may have told us to suppress our feelings. Don't cry. Don't be angry. Don't be too much. So we learned to hide. And honestly, we're afraid of what we might find. Shadow work requires us to admit that we've been wearing masks. And that can feel like a death to the old self. Sometimes we cling to the pain we know because it feels safer than stepping into the unknown. The ego doesn't want to lose control, so it resists the very process that could free us. There's also fear of being judged. If we reveal our anger, jealousy, or grief, will people still love us? Many of us carry shame that convinces us we're bad if we own these parts. But here's what I want you to remember. The shadow isn't a monster. It's a wounded child. When you finally turn toward it with love, it softens. And often you realize the part you feared the most is actually holding the key to your power. I'm going to take some time here and talk about my own journey with shadow work. I know I don't go super in depth with my own personal things, but I really do believe in giving pieces because, I'm a firm believer in having boundaries, and I don't need to tell everybody everything at all times. In fact, I tell people you should probably not tell most people most things, just out of understanding your own power and, asking yourself, does it feel right for me to share these things with everyone or a large audience? So for me, there really are certain things that I have to sit with and figure out, okay, do I want to share this? Is this something that feels appropriate or feels right to me? When I first became a yoga teacher, people saw me as calm, spiritual, light-filled. And yes, that's kind of true. But I was also carrying deep anger and sadness that I didn't want to admit. I thought if I showed those parts, people wouldn't see me as a teacher or a guide. I was afraid it would make me look less spiritual, which, today, I really don't give a fuck about. If I'm being honest, I really don't care about those things anymore. But shadow work taught me that my anger wasn't wrong. It was pointing me towards boundaries I wasn't honoring. My sadness wasn't weakness. It was asking me to grieve, to release, to soften. When I began integrating those shadows, I didn't just become a better teacher. I became a more human, more real, more whole person. That's what shadow work does. It makes you authentic. So when I was first breaking down the ego and going through my first night of the soul, whatever you really want to call it, spiritual awakening, there's about a million different titles and buzzwords these days. It felt like I was dying and being reborn pretty much every single day. There were moments of incredible joy that I was experiencing, and all at the same time, moments of incredible sadness and grievance. I remember there was a period of time where I was renting a room in Los Angeles. If nobody knows, I used to live in LA from 2015 to 2020, which is where I first started teaching. That'll be another episode talking about my background and the fun adventures I've been on. But I was renting a room. This was in 2020 for 6 months in South Redondo, but it was pretty much Palos Verdes. I distinctly remember spending my nights and evenings not sitting on my phone, not scrolling, not watching TV endlessly or whatever hot TV show was on, popular at the time. I was purposely listening to music that made me feel triggered and allowing my body to move through that, to cry, to purge. And I would also journal if I felt called to it. I would write those thoughts down, those feelings, the things that were popping into my mind. Then there were times where I would go for a walk in the neighborhood and I would just talk out loud to myself. Just having a conversation with myself made me feel safe and heard and seen. So those are some of the practices I was integrating well before I knew what shadow work was, well before I knew that I was even a spiritual person, let alone that I was, moving towards those things. But I will say this, I was grieving a lot of people and relationships in my life at the time. I was coming to terms with specific traumatic experiences that I had had when I was younger that I continuously told myself didn't happen. Because it was easier, It's easier to just put on that mask every single day, put on the smile, to say, oh, I'm doing good whenever somebody asks me, how are you doing? And really, what does that get me? What does that get me? more suppression. And it makes everything worse for me, you know? I, at the time, really became sick and tired of holding space for that. I decided to open the container, open the storage unit, open that damn closet, and to really look at every single piece. It was overwhelming. It was tiring. It was exhausting. It was hard and challenging. It was painful, man. Painful. And there's still times when I'm still doing spiritual work and this shadow stuff that I'm talking about where it still feels like that. It's just not as intense because I've already created a solid foundation within myself, a solid, strong sense of self, which makes me more in that category of authentic, right? I'm living my authenticity. I've become sovereign within myself, which is great and has helped me along the other challenges that come. So like, shadow work isn't meant to be something where you fix yourself. You are not broken. There's nothing broken about you. There's nothing broken about me either. But there were things that I needed to look at, to heal, to accept and love radically. So, you know, those practices then turned into more joy and more play. I love to dance and to move my body. That's one of my main medicine providers. I like to write and to... Actually, I admittedly love writing poetry. Maybe one of these days I will share some of that on the podcast. If that's something you would like me to do, please let me know. Leave a comment or message me. Shadow work has been something that has helped me progress and grow. And I no longer look at it as scary, right? I don't fear it anymore. In the beginning, I definitely did. Oh man, did I? Ugh. I was like, no, don't make me. The dramatic version of me for sure. Or just like moments of drama. But yeah, those are just some of the experiences that I was having when I was starting to like find this process. Again, did not know it was called shadow work. Did not know it had ties to spirituality, let alone psychology. So what is the practical side of shadow work? How do you actually do shadow work? I'm going to give you some practices here. So these are just ideas, some of these things I've done myself, and it's helped me a lot. So first one, if you don't already know I love journaling, then here's your introduction. Here's some prompts. What traits in others trigger me? And why? What am I most afraid people will find out about me? That's a big one for myself. Where do I feel jealousy, and what is it showing me about what I desire? So those are just some prompts, some general ideas. You can always pause this, rewind, so you can write them down if you want to use them. Mirror work is one of my favorites. I tell you what, if you've never heard of it, please look it up. You look in the mirror, make eye contact with yourself, and say, I see you, I accept you, even the parts I've hidden. This can be intense, but it's powerful. The first few times I was doing this, I tell you what, your girl sobbed. Sobbed. And it felt great afterwards. It was a wonderful release. It was during a time where I was trying to allow myself to cry, because I always told myself, no, you're not allowed to cry. You can't show weakness. You can't show you're sad. No, you can't do that. But when I gave myself permission to do it, especially in the mirror, looking deep within my own soul, woo, wow, it was powerful. So I highly recommend that practice. Inner child meditation. I have done this a few times, and I will share with you the details of that in a moment. Visualize your younger self, the version of you who first felt shame, fear, or rejection. Sit with them. Ask them what they need. Tell them they are safe and loved. So 2 things. I've done this guided meditation with students before who were interested in doing visualization meditation. They had voiced to me that meditation had always been very elusive and hard for them. And they were all people dealing with addiction, recovering from childhood traumas and things. So this was a really, really great one for them. And I very much enjoyed facilitating it. But I have also done it. So the first time I did this kind of meditation, it was like an hour-long one. And it was on Insight Timer, by the way. I actually am a teacher on there. If you're interested, I can also leave the link to that. You can meditate with me anytime for free. So the first time I did this was in 2020. And I tell you what, it was hard. Honestly, I met who I believe was me at 5 or maybe 6 years old. I was looking down at her, we're standing, and she grabs from my hand and she looks up at me with teary eyes. She says to me, "Please don't ever leave me again." Oh, did that kill me? Ugh. I came out of that meditation crying. I came out of that journaling like crazy. If I ever find my, I know where my old journal is, but if I can find that entry, I would be happy to share it with all of you as another continuation of this topic, if you're interested. The feeling that came up for me was abandonment. My inner child didn't want to be abandoned anymore. She was tired of it. She wanted to be with me and connected. So I then vowed to never abandon her again. And I tell you what, I've made her so proud. So proud. And it's making me teary-eyed right now. Oh my goodness. Ugh. I'm very proud of myself. I'm very proud of her. I'm very proud of the work that we've done together. I'm so glad that we have reconnected. Another one is body awareness. So shadows live in the body too. If you've ever read The Body Keeps Score, this is a big one for you. Okay, I just want to put that out there. It's an excellent book. Notice where you tense up. The chest, jaw, maybe the stomach. Breathe into those places and ask, what memory or emotion lives here? So you're tapping into the feeling instead of the thinking, because those are very different. Now, another practice is compassion. Remember, you're not trying to fix yourself. You're learning to love yourself back into wholeness. When we talk about compassion, you're holding space for yourself so that you can accept who you are. Okay? Certain things you're going to look at in shadow work and you're going to be like, why do I do that? That's not healthy. Or, that's toxic. Damn. The point is not to feel bad about yourself. The point is to look at it so that you can help yourself integrate healthier patterns, healthier actions, healthier perspectives. And you're learning again to love yourself the way that you are. And sometimes it's on the opposite. You feel ashamed. Why did I do that? That was really embarrassing. Do I just not care about myself? If these are triggering you, that means that this is a call for you to do this work. Just saying. Because these are things that I've said to myself too many times. Let's go over some common myths about shadow work. Myth 1, shadow work is dark or dangerous. I've heard this one quite a bit on the internet, which is interesting to me. Ignoring your shadow is what is dangerous. Bringing it to the light is healing. So if you're not doing shadow work, you're not doing the healing process. You're supposed to go through these things in order to get to the other side so that you can liberate yourself from suffering. Myth 2, shadow work means you'll never be happy. Actually, integrating your shadow makes joy deeper because it's real and not forced. It's something that will bring happiness, sure, but it's because it's real happiness, real sense of joy, not something that you're, putting on the smile, putting on the mask of everything's okay, right? Last myth here, shadow work is a one-time thing. The truth is it's ongoing, like peeling layers of an onion. Each season of your life brings new insights. Today, I'm still doing shadow work. And can it be exhausting and tiring and painful at times? Yes. But I know it's beneficial to me. I know it's worth my time. I know it's worth my effort. So what is the spiritual perspective? Here's the higher lens. Shadow work aligns you with your soul's purpose. Because when you integrate your shadow, you're not leaking energy trying to hide. You're not living from masks. You're living as your authentic self. Ascended masters, mystics, and yogic sages all faced their shadows. Jesus went into the desert. Buddha faced Mara under the Buti tree. Even Mother Mary endured deep suffering. Their light was powerful because they integrated their shadows, not because they avoided them. Your soul didn't come here to be perfect. It came here to be whole. And wholeness is holiness because it embraces both the light and the dark. When you meet your shadow with love, you actually embody compassion at its highest form. Your healing doesn't just serve you, it ripples outward, softening the collective field for others to heal too. That's why shadow work isn't just personal, it's planetary. Every time you integrate a piece of yourself, you raise the vibration of humanity. And that truly is sacred service. What is the freedom on the other side, though? When you face your fears, you're free. Free from hiding, free from shame, free from the weight of pretending. Imagine living your life where nothing inside you feels like a secret, where you can sit with your anger, your jealousy, your fear, and still love yourself through it. That's not weakness, that's strength. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more you embrace your shadow, the more light you carry, because real light includes everything. So my loves, shadow work is not about becoming someone else. It's about remembering that all of you is worthy. Your shadow isn't the enemy, it's the doorway. And on the other side of that doorway is freedom. If this episode resonated with you, share it with somebody who is ready to hear that they are not broken, they are becoming whole. And if you're doing shadow work right now, know that I see you, I honor you, And I'm right here walking this journey too. Until next time, keep creating, keep healing, and keep honoring every part of who you are.